This video is going to be a film study look at new Seattle Seahawks defensive lineman Demarcus Lawrence, a veteran from the Dallas Cowboys. Played his college ball at Boise State. Only played 4 games in 2024 for the Cowboys. Nonetheless, Seattle committed a significant amount of money for him. I'm not here to comment on the contract. Was it too much? Was it just right? I watched the film, and I try to tell you guys things that I noticed with the film and utilize my analysis in combination with other content creators and other people whose news feeds you read and or stories you check out. I think Demarcus Lawrence is a physical asset for this team. I don't think he's an outside linebacker like Boye Mafe or Derek Hall. I think he's a defensive end. Now, how does he fit into their base defense? There'll certainly be times where he's playing outside linebacker in a stand-up alignment. I really like him playing in a three-point stance with his hand in the ground at his height and with his length. There's just something from a geometric standpoint that I like about him getting his hands out on people. I think he's got excellent use of his hands. He can play 9 technique, which is outside the tight end. He can play 6 technique, which is head up on the tight end. He can play 7 technique, which is inside shade of the tight end. Don't ask me to explain that if you're not familiar with it. I think he redirects very well. He's not a burner by any sense of the imagination. If he was coming out in the draft, I don't think his 40 time would stand out to a lot of people, but he still has great range. When he's committed to a track, he plays on that track. I really like his game, and I want to get started to the film here for you guys quickly. I will have 2 of these, to be honest with you. I've separated it into 2 sections. We'll look at pass rush situations and then some run plays at the end. I do think that there's a lot of usage here for him to help the Seahawks defense against the run. Certainly, everybody looks at edge rushers, defensive ends, outside linebackers. How are they going to get to the quarterback, or how much are they going to get to the quarterback? He's an ass kicker against the tight ends. He's great at what we would call, a visual key and then a pressure key. So in this case, the pressure key being the tight end, and then the visual key being oftentimes it's the tackle to the inside. You'll get a view a little bit later where you can see he's looking at the tackle, his visual key, and then he's responding to the tight end, his pressure key. And he does here what he often does, just shrugs the tight end off like he's nothing, and then gets to the quarterback quite easily, in this case for a sack. Some of the film that I will utilize here will be from 2023, just so you know. Like I said, he only played 4 games last year. When I mention alignment numbers, if you're turned off by that, forgive me. Coach speak obviously utilizes a lot of phrases and stuff, and so I should do a better job explaining it at certain times. But he plays in a unique location at times that I'm interested to see how that fits in Seattle's defense. It's called a 4-eye. And here in a moment, I will give you that alignment by showing you the end zone angle. It's not a limiting factor for him. And some guys that played in a 4-eye means they can't really get to the football. So when I say that he's got great range and redirects to the quarterback well, that's what I mean. He can play in a 4-eye and still redirect to the football. I'm very interested in him being on the field with Boye Mafe and or Derek Hall at the same time. So what that looks like, a 4-2, a 4-3. Mike Macdonald's typically been a base 3-4 type of guy, but he's got a multiple defense against 11 personnel. It'll be very interesting to me where they put Demarcus Lawrence. So there's 2 inside linebackers on the field here against Arizona. He's in a 4-eye. He's going to spin out of here, not extremely quickly, to be honest with you, but Leighton Vander Esch, who's obviously since retired, is going to be there to contain the quarterback. And then this is Lawrence finishing. He is a finisher. There is a burst to his game at the point of tackling people such that he really has an impact on the ball carrier's body. And in this case, it's quarterback Josh Dobbs, who I think at this, from this 2023 game, he's moved on to 2 different teams at this point as we get to approach the 2025 season. Lawrence is a violent finisher. And like I said, part 2 of this video series will be, if you guys are interested, will be about his 4 games in 2024. I like the film, especially for the Seahawks, but not just in pass rush situations. He wins violently at the point of attack, his initial strike with his hands, or sometimes his shoulder or whatever, but he also finishes the play well. You're not looking at an older guy who doesn't have sustainability throughout the play. Again, you have a strike to begin the play. He's violent and explosive there, and he also finishes well. That, to me, is an indicator at the beginning of end of each play. Normal football play, I think, is around 7 or 8 seconds, something like that. he's got the ability to maintain or retain that explosiveness throughout the play. And so here he is, same play from the end zone angle. You can see getting to that inside gap from a 4-eye position and then finishing off with a violent smack of Josh Dobbs, who tries to get away from the QB contained player. Let me address the 4-eye thing real quick. No tight end here. Head up would be a 4-5 technique lined up wider. In this case, Vader Esch is, really wide. Call him a ghost, whatever you want. Inside shade of the tackle, 4-eye. So it's a limiting factor for some guys in a 4-eye because they end up getting down blocked so much, essentially a down block, that they're unable to get back out to the football when the football bounces outside. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. That was my attempt to explain a 4-eye to you. Quite sure that other people could explain it, a little bbit better or a little bit more in depth. But to see a guy able to get to the football consistently from that 4-eye alignment is 4-eyes. It's like a hybrid DN, D tackle role. I think he's very much like Leonard Williams. Doesn't have the same size, don't get me wrong, but you can line him up everywhere. You can line him up at 9 technique. Leonard Williams did that on some pass plays this year. You can line him up inside against guards, and he kicks their ass plenty of times. The one that I'm getting ready to show you is one that I'm very interested in obvious passing situations. The group I'm imagining is Hall or Nwosu, depending on what happens with his contract. Hall and Mafe on the outside, Williams and Lawrence. That group right there looks like the best pass rush group for this Seattle team in obvious passing situations. Let's get to what I was talking about, where he lines up against the center. This is against the Giants, 2nd and 18. I think it's a backup center for the Giants, but I could be wrong. In any case, pure physical dominance. This reminds me of Leonard Williams in that you can identify a guy on the opposing team's offensive line that we're just going to put this guy here, Leonard Williams, our best, or Demarcus Lawrence, and he's going to kick that guy's ass and win that matchup such that you as the opposing offense have to utilize certain pass protection schemes to, for lack of a better word, protect that weaker offensive lineman. Hopefully I said it in a way that makes sense. I'm a big fan of this signing, in case you don't know, and I recognize that there's probably a wide variety of reactions to it. So feel free, as a Seahawks fan, to let me know if you agree with my assertion that I think he upgrades the ceiling and the floor for Seattle's defensive line, and I think he does so against the run and the pass. Same play from the end zone angle, and there's just no bullshit to his game at all. He's all about violence. He's all about attacking with his hands, striking, and winning with what I would say is proper technique, meaning hands on the inside on the strike. You can see that the center has his hands to the outside, and Lawrence in every situation here is getting his hands to the inside. Dominant play against a center who, was clearly overmatched. When I say that he reminds me of Leonard Williams, am I trying to get Seahawks fans excited? Yeah, I am. I think you should be. Again, he only had 3 sacks in 2024. I think he got a big contract in the 2019, 2020 range, somewhere around there. Maybe it was 21. Even still at his age, I think 32 or turning 32. With Mafe, Hall, and Leonard Williams, great pass rush group. Reed and others on the defensive line. Murphy, who I would like to do a film study video of at some point soon. I think this is a very good group. You're welcome to let me know what your thoughts are about it in the comment section and what other people's analysis of this acquisition has been. So here, another situation where he's just absolutely annihilating a center. It's not in a one-on-one situation. It's a 3rd and long, and he is lined up inside. So he's lined up as if he's going to rush over the right guard and then jumps inside, destroys the center, former Raven Bosman, by the way. A pick stunt, if you will. And then when you get the end zone angle of it, you'll see him redirect, come downhill to go get Young. Just a badass football player, if you ask me. I'm essentially trying to show you how much you can get done with him at the different alignments. I was a little surprised. I saw Dallas's defense this year against the Ravens. Wasn't very impressed with it. I saw their defense against the Lions later in the year when Detroit went down there and just absolutely smacked them. Of course, Demarcus Lawrence didn't play in that game. Saw their defense late in 2023 against the same Detroit Lions. and they played better that day, quite obviously. But the Demarcus Lawrence film looked better than I expected, especially his level of violence, the versatility I've talked about a couple of times. This same play from the end zone angle, just check him out, absolutely crushing the center on this stunt with an actual D tackle, upending the center, clearing the path to get himself to the quarterback. It's a violent dude on the defensive line, which is what you want. It's what Mike McDonald wants. The familiarity with the defensive coordinator, I think Durday, if I said that correct, if I said it improperly, forgive me. Please let me know in the comment section. The familiarity there, obviously a factor in this acquisition. At his age, is he athletic enough to play outside, meaning an edge defender, what people would call an edge defender? I do think so. I view him as a defensive end, like I said earlier. Mafe and Hall are outside linebackers, but Lawrence can do it all. And the one thing that I will say, if you're going to line up with a tight end on the field, Demarcus Lawrence is complete ass kicker in those situations. Now, this is actually not a tight end. This is a wide receiver, Deebo Samuel, since he moved on from the 49ers. This is filmed from, I believe, a playoff game after the 2023 season. But there you can see the physicality and with the extension of the hands. This is against a wide receiver, but look, his hands are still on the inside. He's not, okay, this is a wide receiver. I can be a little sloppy with my technique. Lawrence, to me, reminds me of just like a high-level professional boxer or combat sports athlete who has technique, and that's what he's going to do no matter who he's facing, no matter what the situation is, committed to the technique, because it's been ingrained in him so often over the years. His hand usage is what I'm referring to. Additional to that, and I kind of spoke about this a little bit earlier in the video, great eyes. His hands work, but his eyes lead the way. And what I mean by that is he just reacts with his hands to what his eyes see. He's got great eyes to be able to get his head in here to see what's happening and then redirect off of it by shrugging off Deebo Samuel. Basically, very similar to the first play that I showed you when he shrugged off Cody Bellinger, threw him to the side, went and got the sack against Daniel Jones from 2023. You may not get as fired up about a defensive end using his hands well, being able to let his eyes lead the way. We would use that phrase sometimes, and I recognize that. But I'm a defensive guy, and the things that I do recognize that I think are part of the formula for playing winning football, I think Demarcus Lawrence does quite well. Against the run, he's very impressive. Like I said, wins against tight ends all the time. But it's also, he has different wins. So he'll win immediately, but then he'll also win late. So be able to shrug off defenders, or blockers like you've seen a couple of times. I really am interested in his overall level of athleticism and violence combined with Leonard Williams out on the field at the same time against a tight end who appears to have a pretty decent angle, but Demarcus Lawrence will peel off or shed that block at a time of his choosing, depending on when and where the ball carrier commits. I hope that as Seahawks fans you're excited because I am for you first of all, but I am for myself to be able to watch the defense more in 2025. Schedule comes out, I'll be able to determine how many games I'll be able to do live reactions for. When I say the tight end had a great angle, what I mean is he's got an angle with Lawrence lined up inside of him, so in that gap. And again, I think Lawrence has got his eyes on the tackle, but pressure key to the inside. Look at the hands to the inside. My apologies. Hands to the inside, winning with extension, and then almost like a milkshake move on the tight end to be able to shed him to one side and then to the other. So he's setting him up by pulling him here. He's setting him up and then adjusting to the running back and boom, getting off the block. Great finish, if you ask me. I think he's a finisher. Now, is he a finisher in the pass game? Are you going to get 14 sacks out of him? I don't think he's that kind of guy. The combination of those four guys that I named, I think is good enough to be what Mike McDonald wants. Of course, you have the draft, man. Seahawks are in a great position for the draft. I intend to do another mock draft at some point this weekend if I get the opportunity to do so. One that's updated based upon what Seattle's been able to accumulate. I think it's 5 of the top 92 picks. Feel free to correct me in the comment section. I think that's a wonderful situation for Seattle's front office. Like I said about Demarcus Lawrence, he's great against the tight end. The only thing I will say is it's a different system that he's playing in with Mike McDonald. So the familiarity with the defense coordinator from Dallas, who's the DC now in Seattle, I think is going to be a big asset in what Lawrence does well. Splits the tight ends here, creates havoc in the backfield. You also got a badass kind of, we would call it a cheat stunt with the D tackle and the nose tackle. I'll give you the end zone angle so you can see it yourself. I think it's a great situation. I recognize that there will be people who say, we paid too much. I think he improves the pass rush by a particular amount. I'm not sure. He might improve the run defense even more because put him to the side of a tight end. He's going to win that matchup and cause real problems. Number one. Number two, if you get him to the side of the tight end, and there's actually 2 tight ends here, and there's a 3 technique to his side, real issues for the offense to create running gaps to that side. He can really 2-gap with these tight ends. So what I mean by that is, if need be, he can play the gap inside the tight end, and if the blocking scheme and or the running back's path changes, he can play the gap to the outside. That's what we mean when we say 2-gap. He's capable of doing that from a physicality standpoint and also a technique standpoint. That's not really what plays out here. He's really just splitting the double teams, a great get off. Also can see his eyes looking down. Might be looking at the tackle or just looking at the ball being snapped. But in any case, he's stepping between the tight ends. Stunt also plays a factor or plays a role here in how effective those guys are at stopping the run. And it's not to say he doesn't have wins against offensive linemen in the run game. So I'll show one of those before I finish the video up. He's got plenty of wins against tight ends, and that's the reason why I mention it to you. But I don't want to present the video or present his game as if that's all he does. He's got plenty of wins against tackles in the run game as well. Really big, strong, explosive get off. And in many cases, when it's not often, but sometimes you get the view of the film that's kind of from the side, from basically essentially you're on the line of scrimmage, so you can see the get off. And what we used to do is pause the film like 0.4 or 0.6 seconds in, something like that, and see how far each defensive lineman was across the line. We want the guys that are, getting pretty far across the line of scrimmage as quick as possible after the snap. Everyone does as a D tackle, defensive end, whatever. And Demarcus Lawrence has got a great get off. He gets off the ball quickly and he attacks with his hands and then adjusts. Also think he's a finisher, as I've mentioned a couple of times. Last play against the tackle in the run game. Again, Arizona. I think it's Paris Johnson. Peels off of him. Gets to Connor, first guy in contact. I'll give you the end zone angle. So really solid signing, if you ask me. I'd like him as a D end, head up to the tight end side. When I say that it's a different system, I mean it. Against 11 personnel, Mike McDonald and those guys last year were oftentimes playing wider 9 techniques. There's a look that they utilized maybe week 11, somewhere in that area, 12, 13, started to use it more. I think they really began to utilize it in the second matchup with the 49ers. I basically called it a 3-3, and I understand that some people won't like that term. I wonder if Demarcus Lawrence isn't slated to play boundary side 5 technique, and if the tight end ends up over there, then he'll end up in that 6 technique, 7 inside shade of the tight end because he's so physically dominant. That's just a speculation that I have based upon what I saw Seattle do last year against 11 personnel to try to stop the run. I think that leads into my last point is Demarcus Lawrence brings versatility in alignment, versatility in assignment, along with all the physical gifts. It's a really great signing. I'm not sure how to paint this as a negative, unless he ends up being injured and unable to play a whole lot of football games in Seattle, which that's been a frustrating situation with Uchenna Nwosu. I think he had 9.5 sacks in 2022. Hasn't been able to replicate that because, just hasn't been able to stay on the field. I'm a big fan of the signing. Please let me know where you are with it. I don't necessarily do grades, but floor for this one seems like B- or B. If you get Demarcus Lawrence healthy for 17 games next year and you get 8-10 sacks out of it, there's just really no way you can say that this isn't an A or A plus signing, because it's assumed to me you're going to get great effort and you're going to get great results and impact against the run. That part of his game is just there. It is who he is. The sacks, sometimes a little bit less predictable. Sometimes it could be related to or powered by what's happening with other guys on the field. So I'm less concerned about that. I do think he'll have an impact in the pass game, and I recognize that, most people are probably focusing on that, whether or if he will impact the pass game more, such that Mike Macdonald's pattern or history follows this signing. And what I mean by that, since I have, some knowledge of his career as a coach, normally wherever Mike Macdonald has shown up, there's been a huge uptick in sacks. When he became the defense coordinator at Michigan, that's the last year that David Ojabo and Aiden Hutchinson were at Michigan. Huge uptick or increase, explosion in sacks for Ojabo, who had done really nothing prior to that his last year at Michigan. Hutchinson went from 4 sacks to, I think, 14 or 16, something like that. Comes back to Baltimore, Macdonald that is, comes back to Baltimore, and we had 110 or 112 sacks in a 2-year period. So unbelievable production. A lot of us, myself included, thought him moving to Seattle in 2024, you were going to see that same pattern. It didn't really follow. And so I recognize that Seattle fans are looking for some type of increase in pass rush production, be it pressures, sacks, quarterback hits. I think Lawrence is going to have an impact there, but it's less predictable, if you ask me. The play against the run, which is a big factor in Macdonald's defense, in my opinion. You want to get teams in as many known passing situations as possible, and certainly we can all admit that there were some run defense deficiencies at times last year. In any case, man, I appreciate you guys' time if you watch the whole video. Thank you very much for doing so, number one. Number two, if you think other Seahawks fans would enjoy this video, please consider grabbing a link to it, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach. And then finally, please let me know in the comment section if you would enjoy seeing a part 2, an updated look here from the 2 games film that I have of Demarcus Lawrence in 2024, which would be Week 1, the season opener against the Browns, where he had 2 sacks, and then Week 3 against the Ravens. Appreciate you guys' time.